Welcome back to Empire Secrets, everyone. Hello, I'm your host, Mariana Henninger. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you might notice that my hair is wet. I just came back from the beach. It is a heat wave here in New York City, and I am so excited to chat with a friend of mine, Caryn Gillen, who's on the show today. She is a business coach for coaches who want to replace their corporate income with a calm and sustainable business. We're going to talk about that word calm, which I love so much. Once you start hearing Karin, you'll see what I mean. And she's also she was in the past a commercial fisherman. Karin, are you still a commercial fisherman or no?
No,
I did
not
not
this
catch
year.
that. Okay. And then also has run restaurants and she's been a coach for 15 years. We're going to talk today about how alignment is the most important and most disruptive thing that you can do in your business. I love this because I have not talked about alignment on the show and it can sound like a buzzy word. I'm glad it's not as buzzy as authenticity. And I think it really, I'm excited to have this conversation because it speaks a lot to where I am right now in my business. So, Karin, welcome to the show. Let's dive right into how did you go from like the origin story question, right? How did you go from being a commercial fisherman, running restaurants, to being a business coach?
A long and windy road. Well, I became a therapist somewhere in the middle there, and all of that was because I thought life coaching wasn't really real, and eventually they would come regulate it. But once I did that for a while, I was like, "Nope, I'm a coach." So I got back to my roots, did some coach training, and have been using that skill ever since.
I'm actually curious what drew you to coaching versus staying in therapy?
Yeah. Well, when I graduated from undergrad, I took a trip to Spain with these 3 dudes, and it was like this. As soon as we took off from the airport, I had this like, "What am I doing with my life?" I called it the affliction. I was like, "This does not make sense," and I was going through all the people in my mind, like, I don't wanna be any of the people that I knew. I didn't want any of their lives, and I was like, "What is this thing called that I am?" So, really, that whole trip, I spent this is pre-Google, I think. I spent a lot of time in internet cafes searching, like, "What is this thing called that is how I wanna be?" And
Okay.
it was I discovered, like, oh, it's life coaching, and I had that, like, the clouds parted, the angelic music played. I emailed my mom, and then a day later, when I went back to the internet cafe, she said, "Who wants a 22-year-old life coach?" And I was like, "Shoot."
Imposter syndrome directly from mama.
Yeah. So, I was like, she's not wrong. Maybe they'll regulate it someday. I'll go become a therapist." I got a little confused as I was in school, like, "Okay, I can do this. I can be great at this." But after a year and a half of working as a therapist, I was like, "You know what? This isn't it. This isn't fair for them, and it's not fair for me to want something different, you know?"
Business coaching, I'm guessing, is because of your background in being a commercial fisherman, running restaurants. Well, here's the thing, Karin. Let me just explain to folks how we met. We met
Okay.
in a peer mastermind group, and we get put into pods every quarter. So it's a little bit of I'm not sure what algorithm our leader uses to sort of put us together, but Karin
Yeah.
has been in, or we've been in the same pod this quarter, and her name had floated around in the group and I'd kind of seen people mention her or she'd pop up with a comment here and there. And yet when we started chatting on Voxer, which is what we're using now, and I could hear her voice, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this woman just speaks so differently than everyone else. There's something
Mm,
so calm about her." And not only that, but I had brought something to the group that I had so much input from everyone else in the group, like a lot of really good, but kind of, I want to use the word intense. There was a lot of input
mhm.
that I received at once, which is fine. I mean, sometimes I feel like I do that to other people. I was like, oh, this is what it feels like. And it's great. And it was obviously coming from so much love and so much goodness there, but it required me to digest it, right? And
Mhm.
that's what I needed to do at the time anyway. And I remembered that you kind of gently was like, "You've got enough here. You're
Yeah, seems
good."
like you're covered.
Right. And I was so intrigued by that. I mean, like, this is to me the best way to do magnetic marketing. You weren't marketing to me at all, but like the idea that I was more drawn to you because you didn't give me all the things. And I was very curious to get your take also because you're the leader of the pod, I forgot to mention, and you had led us in the Zoom calls so beautifully. And I just noticed that every time you opened your mouth, you had something really interesting to say. And so I couldn't help but like private message you and be like, Karin, I still want to get your take on this. And you didn't give me a ton of things. All you did was just kind of give me this question. What if you didn't do any of that? And I was like, ugh, wow. And that really was, to me, kind of the turning point of this new moment that I am in my business. So that is the background of why I wanted to bring you on the podcast today. And I love that we kind of settled on talking about alignment in business. I've definitely, I had a question in the beginning of this, and I am now onto a different question, which is tell me why you feel aligned, or like what is alignment in business, and why
Mhm.
did you want to talk about that?
I wanna talk about alignment because I think when people hear that word, they think about yoga and Lycra
Or your
and,
say?
right, and sitting up straight and, they think about this nice, balanced, ideal sort of life, and that's not what it is at all. To have true alignment is to know who you are, to
Mm,
make your choices from that place, even when it means disrupting the status quo, even when it means leaving relationships, leaving community, saying
mm.
yes to things that don't make sense to other people. Like truly being in alignment is I know who I am and what my values are, and I am willing to be uncomfortable to live from them.
Oh my gosh, it's almost like the opposite of balance sometimes then, right? Where we feel like balance is like this beautiful harmony and calmness as you described.
Right.
And that's
Like, what
so
is that?
interesting. Okay. So tell me more about that. So as a business owner, what does that look like and where should we start?
The first place to start is know your values. And I'm going to give your audience my little mini training on values so that they can just be there. And I think for some people, they think they know what their values are, but they've never really pushed on them. And
Mm,
in this training, I push on you because sometimes our values come from who our families were and we adopt them without choosing them.
mm,
And sometimes they come from who our families were and we push away from that without choosing. So sometimes our values are all of these ways in which we are pushing away what we don't want instead of calling in what we do want. And that's running your life from one kind of energy, but it's not choosing what you want. It's doing everything in reaction to how you were raised or the people who you grew up around. So I think the way that values get embedded in us that kind of comes from all over the place. But as
mhm.
adults, I think one of our jobs is to know what those things are because values are the fuel for your entire life and they are running you, whether you're conscious of them or not. So I just think it's better to be conscious of them.
It's so funny because we talk so much about goals being sort of our North Star, right?
Mhm.
Like, I need to achieve this thing by this date. And how am I going to get there? And I'm going to, break it down into this many steps. And these are my,
Yeah.
weekly and then quarterly and all of these. So it's all about like goals and metrics focused, if you will. And what I'm hearing you say is that values are kind of the goal, but the thing by which we should judge whether we go in one direction or not. Is that what
Yeah.
I'm hearing you say?
Yeah. So goals are just a different lens. And I think sometimes we set goals that we think we should have because that's what everyone in our industry does, or that's what we think success looks like. And
Mhm.
those aren't from our values. Those are just from the world has kind of offered them up to us. And we can get down on ourselves for not getting behind them. Like, why don't I want to do that thing that everyone else wants to do that seems like I should want? And it's like, well, it's probably not aligned for you.
Mhm.
And if we know that we have a value for, spaciousness and everyone around you is hustling, you're not going to work for you.
Can you give me some more examples? So first off, your resource is going to help us
Yeah.
be really clear on what our values are. From I haven't dived in yet, but it sounds like it will help us get there.
Yeah.
But I'm also hearing you say that we should take a pause and not just assume the values that we've kind of what's the word I'm looking for? By default
The nice,
have,
pretty values. Yeah.
right?
It's like, yeah, it's like, when you go into a corporate office building and on the wall it says integrity, sustainability, and cooperation.
Right.
But then you go into any individual office and I could be like, "What are your company's values?" And they'd be like, "I don't know." Right? The
Mm,
performative, good values, good ideas versus, but what actually gets you out of bed? What actually fires you up? What actually has you feeling in flow? Sometimes they're completely different than what you think they should supposed to
right.
be. People think family should be a top value. It doesn't have to be. Like, you can
Mhm.
love your family and not have it be your top values. That's okay.
An example of how once we've defined what those values are, and is there like a number that you suggest, how we can then run our business in alignment?
Yeah. So, I mean, my sticky note right here.
Your values on the sticky note?
Yeah, spacious, wholehearted, connection, and integrity. I keep it at 3 to 5 because if you are in a really sticky situation and it's stressful, you can't remember more than that. And the
Mhm.
only reason to do values work and to figure these things out is so that they can be useful to you. So, like most of the time, if we're in a situation where things are feeling confusing, like whether I should go down this road or I should go down that road, most of the time it's because both roads have a value that we want to express in it. And it's like, man, it's hard to choose between two things that would both be good for me. Right. And but it's really helpful to know that. If we don't know what our values are, we're like, why is this so hard to make this
So
decision? It should be easy.
mhm. So, especially I think I've heard that before where if you're stuck on making a decision, it helps to kind of remember what your values are. And I mean, let me play devil's advocate a little bit, which
'Kay.
I love to do. So I'm curious whether if they are our values, isn't there such a thing as like gut feeling? Wouldn't our gut kind of lead us in one way or another? Or are you saying that these are for the situations where we can't really tell where our gut is leading us, where
Well,
maybe
and I
there's a
said
lot of
on to
noise?
both. A gut yes to both things,
I see. Yeah.
which is awkward to hold, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or we're a gut no to both things for really good reasons, but we still have to choose one. And then it's like, how do I choose the lesser of two evils? If I know that this road steps on my value for justice and this road steps on my value for family, then it's like, which value do I want to honor in this situation? And doing that consciously makes the decision not easy, but easier.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I guess you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, so which one is worse, right? Or
Mhm.
which one is
Right.
not as bad?
Yeah.
Are there any other ways in which so I that's one case scenario where I feel like value alignment is important to help you decide which which road is going to be less painful perhaps or less,
Mhm.
easy or less difficult. What are some other scenarios in which our values are helpful for us to have that instinctively clear on
Yeah.
a Post-it note on our computer?
Yeah. I think one place I like to look at them is how you create your offers in your business. I have that value of spaciousness. So when I sell coaching programs, I always have the fourth week as an implementation week for my clients and for myself. So I'm not coaching people every single week of the year and 2 weeks off of Christmas. I'm coaching people the first 3 weeks of every month. And then
Mhm.
I have spaciousness to do other things. And I can build that in, right? And the more we know about who we are, we can make our worlds that we're all creating as business owners fit for us even better.
Mhm. What are some of the results that business owners can feel when they are moving in alignment with their values?
Clients, because when we're in alignment, we are more magnetic
Mhm.
and people can feel that, right? People tune into our energy and they want to buy that. They want to be a part of that. And so when you have that going on inside of your business, everyone can feel it. It's like a calling card.
Right, I'm guessing that is also showing up in your content. Can you give me some of the ways that that would show up? I'm actually it's funny, as you said that, I immediately thought of people who are doing that, and I've actually it's interesting because, in the back of my mind, I'm creating a workshop on authenticity in quotes, and what it would really teach people is how it would give you a ton of examples of how successful or seemingly successful folks are putting out content that revolve around their values and not just giving value. So essentially the contrast between giving value, tips and tricks and all this like nitty-gritty strategy stuff or tactics, says these are my values and I'm showing them in all these different ways. Person that comes to mind is Kelly Roach. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, but every once in a while she'll have a post where she's working out or where she's, each doing yoga and then she talks about fitness and health as part of her lifestyle and how it's impacted. And I don't even know if she always like ties it into the success of her business, but that's a core value of hers. Or at least it seems to be. And to your
Mhm.
point, that does attract people who also have similar values because we do business more often and faster with people whose values we align with. So I'm curious if you could talk about ways that we can show our values through our content. And if
Mhm.
you agree with what I said in the sense that it's not always about just giving value.
Yeah. No, I do. I think people like to understand who you are and know a little bit about your life, and I think showing your life, for one, can show you where you're out of alignment. Like,
Right.
would I put this on Instagram? And if I wouldn't, why is
Ooh,
that?
yeah.
Right? Like, I'll do a random post from the gym too and tie it in, like, getting my reps in. It's the same as things we have to do with marketing and coaching, right? Um, but I think showing up and understanding what your values are makes it very easy to put stakes in the ground and say,
Mhm.
I am willing to say this is important because even if you don't agree, it
Mhm.
is important to me and I can stand on that. So I think they're like, you might have your content pillars, but then you also have like, these are the things that matter. I'm always going to be okay if someone calls me out for X, Y, or Z because this is who I am and this is what I care about. I think it helps give you that kind of grounding too.
These be kind of classified under the 3 to 5 core values? Or are you okay, but are you speaking more specifically about, like, maybe something political that you really stand for or a cause that
Could
you
be.
support?
Yeah, I think it depends on your values. Like
Mhm.
like I'm thinking there's a values upgrade for me because you set your values, you do the best that you can. It's still a work in progress just like you and me, right? So I'm like there's probably a value for like humanity in mine that I haven't identified as a top value yet because some of them are so like integral to who we are, we can't see them. So that's something that I
Mm,
need to go and look at because there are things I'm very willing to say and stand by that are all about humanity. I will always side with humanity.
interesting, I love that. Karin, how can people like, start thinking about what their core values are?
I think the easiest thing is to think about two different questions. One is think about a time in your life where things were really, really hard. Maybe you felt stepped on, but things were just like, this is not right. This is not okay. And what was being squished in you?
Mm.
And that's usually a top value. The flip side of that question is think about a time in your life where you felt like, "I am this fully expressed version of myself. Everything is going amazing." Like, the flow is there, and, like, what was being expressed for you then, and that could probably point to a top value as well.
Oh, I love that. How do you differentiate between a top value and your why?
They're probably related, but it kinda depends, I think, for the person. Some people have really strong kind of origin stories for why they do what they do, and some people don't. And I think it
Mm.
it just depends on which person you are.
And
Like
not
like,
maybe not
what's your
having a
why?
str sorry?
Do you have a really strong why?
My why is I do feel like it's tied to my core values, that I believe that everyone is unique, and I know that sounds super cliche to say that, but I think that we often hide our uniqueness in favor of showing up like we think we should show up as or being
Mhm,
professional or, the business facade. And I truly believe the secret sauce is our uniqueness. And so that my why is kind of like God created us so differently from each other for a reason. And I love showing that. I love helping you come up, express that
mhm,
in a way that's like packaged and beautiful and awesome and like so useful and helpful in your business.
mhm.
But
Yeah,
yeah, I would say in my case, they're very correlated.
mhm. Yeah, and there's a lot of value words we could pull out of what you just said, like reverence, uniqueness, like, there's so many different value words in
Mm.
every story like that, and then it's like, but what's the right word for you can be really different. Like, while one of mine was community, and then I realized it's not community, it's actually connection, because I
Oh, yeah.
had to leave a community that no longer felt in integrity for me. And I was like, "But how can I leave community if it's my top value?" And that's when I
Right.
was like, I can keep connection with myself, with some of the people around here, but I don't have to stay here.
I'm curious, stake when we're not doing this work of taking time to really define our values and to
Mhm.
have that sort of front and center of our business decisions.
There's a potential that you're gonna get somewhere that you have to recover from.
Mm.
So if you don't have your values built in, you will miss some things. Like, you go down the road of things feeling off for longer than you might if you knew why that felt off, right?
Yeah.
And then the further you get down that road, the more you have to recover from. So I
Right.
think it can just, like, help
Mhm.
to make decisions faster for you,
Yeah.
like, right decisions faster.
And more sustainable too, which is one of your core words,
Right.
calm and
Exactly.
sustainable business.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been so awesome, Karin. I know that folks can get some help in understanding their core values by using your resource. So let's go ahead and point that to them. Karin, you also have a membership. Tell me really quickly about your offers in your coaching business.
Yeah. I have a membership, Comfortable in Business for coaches, and then I have small group coaching for coaches called the Advisor Circle, and then I do one-on-one coaching.
I love it. Okay. And you can find Karin's amazing gift of the values equation workshop at brandmagnetic.com/Karin, Caryn. Karin, thank you so much. I'm so excited to continue building our friendship and our relationship in the pods. I'm excited that folks will connect with you and about your calm, sustainable business coaching that I've become such a fan of. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
For having me. It was really fun to connect.